Welcome back, CSE 3200 Yukon stores. We are in chapter 11. I am going to title this chapter a little bit differently than I did in the book. This was really about constraint layouts. It's the default layout we get when we start a new project, and so far we have just been deleting it and putting in something like a linear layout. So this is more like a walkthrough type video. There isn't a great deal of content, but it is kind of fun, and well, let's get going on it. So you're going to need two files open, and only two files for this lesson. You're going to need the item list crime.xml, which you see here, and you're going to need the crime list adapter.kt. So we are going to turn this linear layout, which looks like this in the editor, to this. This is magnified. Let me zoom out. And it doesn't look too much different, but you have an image over here that we'll have to get as a resource, and these kind of look like these kind of look like the GeoQuiz layout, where we had the true and the false button next to each other, and we use a nested layout there. So one of the things about that nested layout I think you should know is that it is resource demanding to render a layout within a layout, which is probably where constraint layout was born, so that we could put things on the page without nesting layouts. So what we're going to do is we're going to go get this icon right here. At the top of page 201 in the book, there is a URL. I'm going to put it in here, www.bignerdrant.com/android-5e-solutions. And if I type that out correctly, I'll immediately get a file that will download. Okay, you see that we've got a copy here and a 1 because I already have done that. So I've already gotten the this zip file into my downloads. So go find that file in the downloads. We're in chapter 11, creating user interfaces with the layout manager. Okay, so I'm at my final level here. I just have to go one more deep, and I believe it's in drawable. And we want the IC solved. IC is short for icon. So we'll copy that. And then you want to go paste it into the file that, the drawable file in your project. Another option should be, let's see if we can just go into the resource manager and just drop that in. Oh, this is the one that already has the IC solve. Let's go here. Let's open up the resource manager and see if just dropping this in does the trick. It does. All right, so a little tour around our editor here. Let's get rid of that so we have a little bit more space. We have our palette over here where we could drag items into our layout. You can see where it would snap into place. And as I put that button in, we can go back to the code and we can see that it added that button. I can delete that button here, and now it's gone. Or I could hit Control-Z, and I can go back in here, and I could click on the button here and hit the delete key, and it's gone, and it's gone from the code as well. So there is there's definitely a relationship between these views, as there should be. All right, so drag and drop all kinds of different views into our layout. That's what the palette's for. If the palette's not there, you can see it off to the side. There it is, so I can get rid of it here, put it back here. The component tree, this shows me my parent linear layout, shows me that it's a vertical linear layout, and then I have my two text views here. If I click on the crime title, you notice that it gets highlighted in either of those boxes. If I click on the crime date, it gets highlighted, and you can see it's highlighted here. So I could basically click on the crime title or the crime date in any one of three spots, on the preview, on the blueprint, in the component tree, and it is now activated. I could hide the component tree, bring it back. Okay, there are a couple of menu items up here. We'll see more as we turn this into a constraint layout in just a second. Now I hid the attributes menu. I'm going to bring it back. It isn't going to show us too much information right now, but that's mainly because these are going to show you a lot more information if this is a constraint layout. So we're going to make this a constraint layout right now. We're just going to convert that by coming over to the component tree, and I'm going to right click on the linear layout and go down and select convert linear layout to a constraint layout. And we don't have much going on here, so the defaults are fine. We click OK, and it takes a little bit, not too long because there wasn't too much information to try to change over from one layout to the next. But this is a, it's going to take a best guess at what it would be to go from one layout to the other. Here, the guess is probably pretty good because it's simple, but let's go back to the code, and we can see that it is now a constraint layout instead of a linear layout. We can also see that it has a bunch of extra lines of code that it didn't have before, such as, let's take a look at this one, layout constraint end to end of parent. We'll hook those up ourselves and see where that comes from. But one thing about the constraint layout, it's kind of nice to do this drag and drop thing. But on the coding end, it's a little bit more verbose. But you know, there's autocomplete, so it's probably not all that bad compared to what we've been doing recently. All right, so let's go back to the design view, and let's bring in our icon. So we're going to do that by selecting image view over here. We're going to drag it, make sure that it is not down here, but up here. And as we get to where we could drop it, you will see that this box up here gets highlighted. So once we drop it, we choose what resource we want it to actually be. Select IC solved and hit OK. And you might want to make use of these tools over here. These are for zooming. I can zoom in. Toolbars down here for sliders, so I can see my view a little bit better. This right now, it's actually at 100%. So if I went down a notch and then hit the 1-to-1, back to 100%. All right. So let's get up here so we could see this, and we could move it in either view, but we're going to move it over here to the edge a little bit. It's not real important where it lands because we're going to change that in a minute. Let's go to the crime title and see this box. We did not see that before. We have some different options that we could scroll through by clicking. As you see these bars highlight, this squiggled line is match constraints, and right now, well, it actually does have constraints. I forgot about that. Let's get rid of those constraints by going up here and hitting this button here, clear all constraints. All right, so let me show you that when you go back to the code, it's much smaller now because all those different bits of code about matching up with constraints, that's all gone. And we'll start putting those constraints in a second. All right, so now let's click the crime title, and we have less going on here. And those squiggly lines, which were match constraints, are now these I bars, which say fixed. And so now you've kind of seen all three options. So let's see, if I click it another time, it goes to match constraints. And if I click it another time, it goes to wrap content, and one more time, and it goes to fix. So once again, this I bar is fixed, the squiggle lines is match constraints, and the double arrows, if I can get that back, that's wrap content. Wrap content we have seen before. Fixed is exactly what you would think it is. You're going to like hard code where it's going to be by pixels or DP. All right, so go to the crime date and let's see how the crime title is shrunk. We want to do that again, so let's go to crime date and click this. So it says wrap content for now, and it gives my image a lot more room to work with. We don't have those boxes over here. All right, so we are going to start to put our constraints in. These 4 circles right here, these are constraint anchors. I'm going to select the top one and click down, and then I'm going to drag up. So I have now put the top of the image to the top of the view, which is the parent. So the top of the parent. By the way, this being the parent of everything, that's why we didn't want to drag and drop anything like a button down here. It simply is not going to show up because our parent begins and ends there. Our text view was just one row of code, and this is going to get duplicated by our recycler view. All right, so I've got the one constraint in. A constraint is like a rubber band. So I have now taken this tension and I pulled it up to the top to top. I pulled it up to the top. So if I take another constraint, or think of it as a rubber band for now, and I click this bottom anchor and I drag it here, now they've kind of canceled each other out. So if you do one on top and one on bottom, then they go towards the center. And you're going to need at least one constraint on the top or the bottom. You also need at least one on the left or the right. If I come over here, we see that we have these warnings, and for the image view it says it's missing constraints. So we're going to put the last constraint we need in here. We're going to click right and drag it to the right. And now that has gone away, and we get a different caution image without content description, which we actually will let go and not change in this video. All right, well, in the preview that I showed you where we're going with this, we did not have this right up against the wall. We had a little bit of space, so we're going to come over here and we are going to put in a 16. Now we could type 16, we could type anything we want. However, if we use the drop-down menu, then we only get multiples of 8, which is good coding practice. So let's go to 16. Let me double check that it should be 16. Yep, that's good. Okay, so now we are going to hook up our crime title and our crime date. We're going to do crime title first, but let's leave a little space. Let's move crime date out of the way a little bit. That's good. All right, so the crime title, let's match the top to the top. So this is going to be kind of short. Like you don't see it right now, but it's there. And then let's match up the end, which is the right side, with the start of the image view. Okay, so top is top, bottom is bottom, start is left, end is right. So we're matching up the end of our crime title to the start of image view. And then let's put the start. Now let's put the start of the crime title to the start of the parent. So basically left to left. And that doesn't look like it actually snapped into place. We could see over here that I have a constraint on the top and the right, but I don't have one on the left. And by the way, if I wanted to delete that constraint, I could just come over here and X that out like so. So let me just move that and put that constraint back in that I just deleted. Also, notice as I drug it, it gave me this, this margin of 4 dp. So let's put that back, and we can see that the constraint went in. And let's come over here, and there we go. So it looks like it's at the center. let's just drag this over here where we think it should be. But we are going to manually put in our margins. So let's put 16 on the left, or the start. Let's put 16 on the top, and let's put 8 on the right or end. All right, now it doesn't look like it leaves too much room for crime date. And we're going to set up crime date, just give a little bit of room here. And we are going to match the start of crime date, that is the left, with the start of the parent. So we are going all the way over here. All right. And then we are going to match the end, or right, of the crime date with the start of the image. And then finally, we are going to match the top of the crime date to the top of the parent. And we can see that our 3 constraints made it. They all snapped in. And we are going to manually put in a margin of 16 on the left, a margin of 8 on the top, and a margin of 8 on the right. This doesn't look right. I believe this constraint, I think it was the last one we put in, should not have gone to the top of the parent, but to the top of the crime title. So let's delete that constraint, and let's put it in like here. Not to the top of the crime title, but to the bottom of the crime title. All right, now let me check that the numbers that I set are still good. They look good, and I'm just going to move them to where I think they should go, but take a look. They are still, oh, no, that one did change. This one was a 16. All right, now we are going to change a little bit more. Both of these two over here are going to get, they're going to get match constraint on the left and the right. So that will extend them to almost all the way up to the image view. All right, and oh, that didn't work out. It went too far, and I must have a constraint that is incorrect. Let's see. Oh, I see it. I went to fixed here, and I needed to go to match constraint, and there we go. So we have our layout the way we want it. Let's run the program. And here we go. Crime 0, Monday, February 27th, etc. Everything is solved. Now, everything is not supposed to be solved. If you remember from our crime class, we set it up where, no, not the crime class. Let's see. In our view holder, in our crime view holder, we had set crime list view model. We had set everything, every other crime to being solved. So the handcuff should show up in every other crime. So we're going to do that by putting a little bit of logic into the crime list adapter where we are binding up the view. So we are going to go here, and we're going to put in binding dot crime solved. Okay, so I'm going to go with crime solved because that makes sense. It's in the book, but I actually have not set the ID of that text view to crime solved. So let's take care of that now. Whenever, let's stop this. Get rid of it. Whenever we brought that view in by drag and drop, if you take a look at the code, it gave an image view ID that was just image view. So let's change that to crime solved. And we might get a warning because we've already used that before. But that's okay. We used it in a different layout that can have repeat IDs, but not in the same layout. So let's go back to our crime list adapter, and that is now fixed. All right. Dot visibility equals if parentheses, crime dot is solved. Then we are going to set the view to visible, else we will set the view to gone. Now I really see that there are three options here: visible, gone, and I think the other one might be not visible. Let's see if I can go dot and visible and gone, and I've seen another one. Oh, there it is, invisible. So invisible was the third option that we might want. I assume that the difference between visible or invisible and gone is that gone means, you know, I couldn't like click it if it was like a button. So maybe I could have something that you don't see but you can still interact with, versus gone, you can't see it or interact with it. All right, so now we run it. And I should see that the handcuffs show up on every other crime, and indeed they do. There is one more thing that we're going to change. We're going to go into our layout manager here and bring up the in design view. Okay, so we're going to scroll down. If this is not highlighted, or if this is not expanded, the common attributes expand it. We want to select crime title before we do that. So now that this is the text appearance is visible, we are going to, well, if we go to this drop down here, I selected a bunch of these to see what would be appropriate. Body 2 kind of works, so let me just show you that body 2 kind of works. And the idea is we're going to get a little bit of a bolder font for the crime title instead of the crime date. So the crime title stands out a little bit better. And let's see if that happens. It does. So that's not too bad. But let's go back in. And we do have some other options, but we're going to have to type it. So let's see, this is, let me find the page in the book, because I found out the instructions a little bit complicated to go through. There's a picture of it on page 224, and yeah, and it's right above the picture. So I'm going to start typing in $ATTR / text appearance. Capital A for appearance. And I'm not really getting any auto correct here. Head, capital H for head, and then I think it's 6. Yep, headline 6. And if I typed it right, that should not be read, so let me check. And I found it wasn't supposed to be appearance head 6, it was appearance headline 6. It's not red anymore. By the way, when I navigated away from it with the error, it went back to body 2, my previous selection, so it wouldn't allow an error there. All right, the box expands a little bit, so I'm guessing this is going to be slightly larger font than it was with body 2. We'll take a look. Yes, it is, and there we have it. We have set up our constraint view, and we are ready to head into chapter 12. Let's take another look at the code here, because just wanted to show you that when we put those constraints in, they are back. Kind of like when we first started. And why is that? Oh, okay. I have a problem here, and that's because I changed my ID of my image view to crime solved. So let's put this in as crime solved. And is that the only one? I feel like there should be one more. I see one more up here, and there it is again. All right, so good thing I spent the time going back to take a look at that code, and I believe we should be good. All right, so we will see you in Chapter 12 videos.